All right, next we would like to turn the presentation over to Lee Kogan. Lee Kogan is Curator Emerita at the American Folk Art Museum in New York. She is previously Director of the Folk Art Institute of the museum, and for more than a decade was Adjunct Assistant Professor of Art and Art Professions at New York University. She organizes, writes, lectures, exhibitions widely, and has contributed essays on Southern and other American folk art catalogs, magazines, and books. I know for myself, I've read Ms. Kogan's essays for many, many years, so I'm very, very excited to present her today.
No, I don't. Do whatever you want with it. I'm not going to walk. I'd like to thank you, Jason. Thank the NCPPT and Tony Rager, who was a close friend of mine. I get choked up thinking about Tony because it would have been a way to see him again today. But organizing this conference, perfect, and inviting me to participate. I really congratulate the Clementine Hunter team and that project that's been going on for years. You have performed a noble deed indeed, and artists like Clementine Hunter are given the respect that they deserve. Henry Darger and His Alternate World, Realms of the Unreal, and the Henry Darger Archives at the American Folk Art Museum. The art of contemporary self-taught artists is very often a preservationist, conservator, or restorer's nightmare. Self-taught artists most often do not have the interest, or for that matter, often the funds, to purchase stable, long-lasting, acceptable art materials. They create thoughtfully, but spontaneously, combining materials at hand, frequently used and recycled, most often collected from local sources. Eugene von Brunschenheim erected towers from chicken bones. Tressa Prisbrey gathered materials at the town dump. Simon Rodia used broken crockery, cement, steel rods, and wire for his magical towers. For an artist whose primary medium is work on paper, the use of fugitive materials is hazardous. Brittleness, fading, darkening, flaking, loose adhesive, tears, holes, sometimes pests, as in the work of Martin Ramirez, are typical problems that result over time. Working individually, sometimes in private without artistic recognition, representation without exhibitions and galleries or collector interest, the art can, over time, wind up in the trash, along with the maker's other personal effects. This might have been the case with Henry Darger, currently respected and recognized as one of the most significant artists, self-taught artists of the 20th century, and I would say artists of the 20th century. His art crosses boundaries of folk and contemporary art, as he is hailed by the American Folk Art Museum, and his art is certainly in the museum's permanent collection. But his art is also in the collections of other major American museums, the American Art Museum, Smithsonian Institution, the Milwaukee Art Museum, the Museum of Modern Art, among them. This talk explores the private and mysterious world of a powerful, ingenious, and remarkable American self-taught master. When he died in 1973, His prodigious, undiscovered artistic oeuvre of writings, paintings on paper, and mountains of source material and books intermixed in a cluttered 1.5-room living space with a plethora of items culled from daily foraging in neighborhood garbage cans. All of this could easily have been trashed. The contents of Darger's room and Darger in the year 2012 may have been an interesting subject for the current popular reality TV show, The Hoarders, the Artist's Edition. But serendipity played an important role in saving the art, an essential source material of this genius's inspired work. The landlord was Nathan Lerner, a Bauhaus-trained industrial designer, an artist himself, who after emptying 2 loads of detritus into a hired dump truck, came upon a stash of paintings. He was overwhelmed with the contents. Lerner sensed the artistic importance of this previously undiscovered talent. While Lerner over the years did no paper preservation on the fragile works, the writings, the source material, he and his wife Kyoko kept all intact, along with the room furniture and bric-a-brac. Darger's art, like almost all self-taught artists, was created with inexpensive, easily available materials. He used affordable drawing paper sheets, carbon paper, and watercolor paints commonly available at the local 5 and 10-cent store. Recycled cardboard was of use, and collage materials was utilized from newsprint, magazine, and other popular sources. He favored decorative stamps as picture borders and used the local drugstore for photo duplication and enlargement. While his materials were somewhat unstable and fugitive, they did survive. Some of the tracings that Darger used over and over again bear signs of wear, and there is evidence of, as I mentioned, and as you saw, rips and tears and fading and darkening in other works. American Folk Art Museum became seriously interested in the art of Henry Darger during and following a 1997 exhibition at our museum, Henry Darger, The Unreality of Being, organized by Stephen Prokopov, University of Iowa Museum of Art. By 2000, through the efforts of the Contemporary Center with Brooke Anderson, who I'm thrilled to say is here today, yay, and a dedicated team of funders, the museum, in a combination of gift and purchase, acquired a sizable number of paintings, books, archival material created by Henry Darger. The source material includes coloring books, comic books, newspaper clippings, photographic prints and negatives, and Darger's traced transfer patterns derived from photographic enlargements and paper-based collaged imagery. In the artist's personal records is some correspondence, religious materials consisting of prayer cards, pictures featuring religious imagery, some financial records, and assorted ephemera. Darger's important personal library, including several Frank Baum Oz books, Heidi, Penrod, and illustrated Civil War publications. A few Bibles, hymn, prayer, and catechism books are among his library books as well. Darger's monumental text material included a 15,000-page novel entitled The Story of the Vivian Girls and what is known as the Realms of the Unreal, of the Glandico-Angevinian war storm caused by the Child Slave Rebellion, called The Realms of the Unreal to us, or shortened The Realms, as well as an 8-volume autobiography, that was 5,084 pages, of which 206 were about his life, and the balance about a tremendous tornado, Sweetie Pie, that destroyed a town. He created around 300 painted works on paper to illustrate the realms, some grouped as diptychs, some triptychs, some totaling almost 10 feet in length. He left several weather journals, fire journals, and interestingly, what seemed to be another novel, several thousand pages completed, which scholar John McGregor refers to as Adventures in Chicago / Crazy House, a sequel to The Realms. In 2001, Dogger's personal archive from his residence was gifted by Kyoko and Nathan Lerner. A Getty grant enabled the American Folk Art Museum to organize and preserve the Henry Dogger collection that is currently housed in 38-foot climate-controlled storage facility, along with our fine object and painting collection. Every piece, document, artwork, and object was lightly brushed, since Dogger's Webster Avenue room was subject to tremendous accumulation of soot from the furnace. All the material was cataloged and placed individually in folders and housed in special-made boxes. And I would say that, again, congratulations to Brooke Anderson for supervising and overseeing, along with the registrar, and then a professional group oversaw that. Every piece of paper and every painting was housed in mylar for ease in handling and looking at, so one could handle those works, most of which are double-sided. Paper was deacidified for all the paintings and important ancillary material, like the tracings. Small holes and tears were repaired by a paper conservator for every work that we exhibit or have been exhibited. Unfortunately, and this is terrible, Nathan Lerner cut with a knife all the drawings from Dogger's handmade sewn spine binding. This was most unfortunate. All of Dogger's manuscripts were transferred to microfilm, and the archival material was professionally organized and stored at the museum's climate and humidity controlled facility, as are the glorious watercolors. The American Folk Art Museum is the single largest repository of Henry Dogger's graphic art, literary output, and archival material in the world. Several exhibitions, a symposium, a lecture series were spawned from these fascinating artworks and accompanying archives. Dogger drawings, his staggering texts, were handwritten and then typed single-spaced. Art and archival material housed in one major place offers a rare window into looking at art and better understanding this singular artist's oeuvre. He experienced pain, suffering, isolation, loss during his 81 years. And it is important to study the details of Dogger's biography and what he shares with viewers, but it does not, and I emphasize not, make the art better or worse. However, it does help in comprehension and sets an important context for study and may amplify our appreciation. Dogger turned the circumstances of his life in a remarkable way with his inspired productivity. The collection and ancillary material makes clearer his artistic process. I visited 849 Webster Avenue, north side of Chicago, near Fremont Street in 1996. This is how it looked then. And here is a view from his Dogger's room from the window. At the time, the neighborhood had a century-old look, but while shabby, was vital and well kept. The house is 2 blocks from the elevated subway line, with a cluster of stores and restaurants serving the surrounding middle-class population. Catholic Church, St. Vincent de Paul, which Dogger while working attended daily, and upon retirement attended as many as 5 masses a day. It's just 2 blocks from his room. Past the front stoop and the main floor, up another flight of stairs to the back is the room that Darger scholars say time stopped. Inexpensive ornaments, many religious ones, were noticed on the fireplace mantel, and there were several steamer trunks, an old hamper filled with balls of string, old eyeglasses, immense stacks, and decades-old coloring books were around. Previously, there were saved Pepto-Bismol bottles as well. The room was not at all tiny or cramped, but it was filled with stuff. Henry Darger was born at home, 350 24th Street in Chicago, to Rosa Fulton Darger. Rosa Fulton, yes, Darger, from Wisconsin. Significant in his life from his writings, Darger's mother died of septicemia when he was 4, after she gave birth to a girl. The artist had no memory of his mother or his sister, who was given up for adoption within a month after his birth. Though his father was handicapped, according to Darger's account, he was happy with his father until age 7, when his father was no longer able to take care of him. He was sent to Mission of Our Lady of Mercy home and attended the Skinner School. This is Skinner School, sorry. His behavior became a concern. He made funny noises in class and was taunted by classmates. A series of medical consultations resulted in his transference to the Illinois Asylum for the Feeble-Minded in Lincoln, Illinois. The place was crowded and existed well into the 20th century. The major diagnosis causing Darger's transference to Lincoln, we are told, was masturbation. Imagine an intelligent child, a sensitive one, spending years in a Dickensian institution. The institution failed to provide Darger with mental stimulation and social skills and support that he desperately needed, or any opportunities for growth. There are suggestions that he may even have been abused there. During his Lincoln stay, his father died. He made several attempts to escape or to leave, and finally did at age 17. He moved to Chicago, lived in a single occupancy room, and supported himself with a series of low-paying jobs, mainly janitorial. Eventually, as a consistent and dependable worker, he was employed by St. Joseph Hospital, where he was a dishwasher and a cleaner. He served in the Army and received an honorable discharge due to poor health. He retired from work at age 71, too ill to stand. He lived on Social Security, attended church service, and spent time with art and writing. When he could no longer take care of himself, the Lerners arranged for him to go to a nursing home, the Little Sisters of the Poor. How ironic. They did visit him, but then stopped after a few visits when he no longer seemed to recognize them. His prodigious novel, The Realms of the Unreal, is an epic tale of war, a story of danger, destruction, cruelty, torture, mutilation, horror, and even the light is responding to these horrors. Rescue and escape, maybe the battle of good versus evil is over the issue of child slavery. An overall religious orientation is ever present, and a Christian side eventually triumphs. The adult male adversaries, the Glandolinians in the early works, were often dressed in gray and wore mortarboard hats. Heroines are the Vivian girls, who always survive travails through their purity, wisdom, goodness, and cunning, even though here they look as though they're in trouble. The Vivian girls are perfect examples of Catholic morality, but they are also perfect shots and excellent military strategists. Dogger so identified with the Vivian sisters that they seem to become part of his imagined surrogate family. Their pictures and those of other little girls hung on the walls of his room, judging from archival photographs that we have that were taken in the 1970s after he died. Vivian's sisters are helped by imaginary creatures, the Blengin-Glominian serpents, called the Blengins. There are many different types. Often they're seen in the form of winged dragons and are serpent-like creatures with 80 to 100-foot wingspans. Blengins sometimes appear in human form and merge with humans at the end of the story. They're dangerous to everyone except the little girls whom they fiercely protect and to whom they are, quote, tender as a mother towards a child, unquote. Among their varied forms are the human-headed Blengins, we see that here, the spangled Blengins, there's also a young Tuscaroran, and the human-headed Dorotheans. There's the cat-headed Blengin-Glominian, and a gigantic Roverine with, the Roverine with young, and all the Roverines are poisonous. Dogger generals were mainly appropriations from newspaper and other printed sources. Here are the wicked Glandolinians, 4 of them. General Bichnelian, Thomas Federal. He took a lot of time giving names to all of his characters. General Tamerline and General Meldonia Schumann. Next, in the upper left, we have another Glandolinian, and in the bottom, high Abienian defenders of virtue and morality. Humor is noted, giving names. There was a general, quote, accountant, and there was also a general, quote, convention. So he loved to pun. Generals were pompously dressed in Austro-Hungarian or Prussian World War I uniforms. Here, though, is the angel-faced Angolinian Colonel Jack Francis Evans. There were also colorful flags and maps, important parts of the story, lending color and spectacle to the epic. Unschooled in drawing and painting, Dogger discovered his own solutions to realize his artistic vision. As you saw before, collage appealed to him as he cut pictures from a multitude of sources, combining them skillfully and with his own beautiful painted backgrounds. Believing he was unable to draw freehand, he also used tracings from coloring books, children's fashion ads, and cartoons. He stored the ads in the library, and he clipped from newspapers and magazines. Notice here's a Coppertone ad, which was among his saved illustrations. And look at it and think of his life, and it really creates a disturbing unease. Here's another example that he saved. It's a potentially threatening situation from a newspaper. Often he altered works with pencil and overpainted with color, giving them a fresh context. Sometimes the artist used text to create his own label copy on the bottom of a photograph, giving his characters a new identity and adding his own personal narrative. Simple alterations might have consisted of penciling in the eyes, changing the character of the photograph. In using newspaper, periodical, and other illustrations, many pictures were too small for his expanded vision. So he began this long, and it was for him an expensive process, of tracing the figures and then going to the drugstore processing service to make negatives and enlarge his tracings. There are over 246 enlargements in carefully labeled brown envelopes that he filed. Multitudes of the same figure were created, sometimes with slight alteration of a hand or a foot, or a reversal of the figure from one side to another, giving it a new look. Some characters were much favored and recurred again and again. One of his favorite figures, he was inspired by the Little Orphan Annie comic. of Harold Gray in 1929. He saved old newspapers. And Annie Rooney, which this is, created in later by Brandon Walsh and Darrell McClure. The comic strip, the coloring book, children's fashion ads were excellent sources with their simple forms, outline shapes, in harmony with the flattened perspective that he favored. Images were altered when Darger removed children's clothes. In this instance, he added a bathing suit for the child. Was it so that not to arouse attention of the clerk or the technician at the drugstore and the person who was enlarging his photographs? Clothed and unclothed figures were simultaneously intermixed in Darger's artworks, all the more unusual because many of the little girls have male genitalia. It's not clear whether Darger was confused about sexuality or had another purpose. Scholar John McGregor addresses the issue with some detail psychoanalytically in his significant book, Henry Darger, Realms of the Unreal. Other recurring figures are running figures and jumping figures, as these are, which really add a galvanic energy to the narrative. One of his favorite recurring figures is the vulnerable little girl with a pail, sometimes pictured amidst impending cruelties, other times noticed in more serene social settings. Unclothed multiple figures are child slaves, but the 7 blonde-haired sisters, frequently clothed in the same outfit, might be seen here. There are 8 of them, so it might have been a relative with them, near to the left of the center in the polka dot dresses. The larger works, as I mentioned, are horizontal and painted double-sided. The diptychs and triptychs were created from individual, smaller drawings that were selected, then glued together by the artist to create the larger format. The sequence of order of the drawings, and if there is a narrative sequence correlating them to the text, has not thoroughly been investigated yet. Some of the correspondences have been found, but many not. Darger was gifted in assembling elements in space to tell a story or that were visually arresting. He had remarkable compositional and color sense. Few artists used purple, yellow, and pink more sensitively, especially in some of the gorgeous color washes. He created lush harmonies with his color palette. Mundane elements were gathered and magically transformed. Heavily peopled scenes, sometimes as many as 100 figures, are both serene and action-filled, occasionally simultaneously combining these 2 disparate moods that I like to think of. Actually, it was Elke Sperry talking about Wölfli when she compared his works and said it was catastrophe and idle. And I like to, one can see that in describing these large narratives as well. Humor is also noted in an example as follows. After being locked in a rat-infested cell, the Vivian sisters decided to harness all the rats and let them out in the Glandolinian quarters. They so frightened the soldiers that the soldiers jumped up on the tables when they saw the rats scampering on the floor. The text balloon ends with a sarcastic comment, quote, "Some soldiers," belittling them for their lack of courage. In the story of his life, Darger wrote, "Unlike most children, I hated the idea of growing up, and I've become an old man. Darn it." In the last entries in his journal or diary, in February 1971, they were really touching. After an apparent eye operation, quote, "A serious infection in bed at home. I couldn't dare go out because of an eye covering for protection placed by the doctor. I had a poor nothing like Christmas. Never had a good Christmas in my life. nor a good year. And now, running, but he meant ruining it. I'm very bitter, but fortunate not to be revengeful, though I feel I should be. Close quote. And finally, the last entry, I'm walking the streets and again going to Mass as usual. Will January 1971, what will January 1971 be for New Year? What will it be? Close quote. Illness, incapacity, and death in his real life answered his query. But subsequently, immortality and respect came to this unprepossessing artist through his extraordinary artworks. Thank you. Oh, I knew I would.
Do we have any questions for Ms. Kogan?
I'd like to just make a comment. People do call frequently, want to examine the archives or study or do some work. Right now, our museum has gone through some complexities of its own. We are up and running. We have a wonderful exhibition, beautifully reviewed and well visited. But at the time, your requests, the archives are not that easily available to the public. We pray and hope that they will be soon. So if you want to contact us, do, but don't plan on doing a paper that's due in 6 months.
Any questions? Yes, Nancy.
No, Brooke might have some comment to make on this. I don't think, no. And in remembering what Brooke had said, because she has examined the spine more carefully, someday somebody should try to match the drawings we have with those remnants in the spine to see if they were. We don't know. Yes.
Any last questions or comments? All right, we're going to break for lunch.